over and over again, Donald Trump is creating charges against people he doesn't like, and essentially advertising it. I mean, he hasn't been shy about suggesting that he's going to use every ability he has at the White House to try to make life miserable for people.
Trump just admitted it's over. His presidency will be finished. And he didn't say it quietly, didn't hint at it, said it explicitly on Truth Social for everyone to see. Posted that if Supreme Court rules against his tariffs, quote, "we're screwed." Those are his exact words, "we're screwed." That's the President of the United States admitting that his entire economic strategy, his entire governing philosophy, his entire second term is built on one thing: tariffs. And if Supreme Court takes that away, which they might do as soon as this week, Trump has nothing left. No plan B, no alternative strategy, no way to govern, just complete collapse. And it's not just tariffs falling apart. His own party is turning on him. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is publicly defying him. Republican senators are blocking his nominees. The economy is tanking, job growth lowest in 20 years for non-recession year. Families hurting, prices skyrocketing, and Trump knows it. Everyone knows it. This presidency is imploding in real time. But real quick, before we get into this, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built John Brown Show, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, please subscribe, because you might think you are, but aren't. Your subscription actually matters here. All right, let's get into what actually happened. Trump posted this insane warning on Truth Social. Said if Supreme Court strikes down tariffs, America would owe hundreds of billions of dollars in refunds. Maybe trillions when you count investments companies made to avoid tariffs. Said it would be complete mess, almost impossible for country to pay. And then he said it, we're screwed. That's surrender. That's admission of defeat. That's Trump looking at what's coming and realizing he can't survive it. Because tariffs are everything to Trump. They're not just economic policy. They're his tool for corruption, his way of punishing enemies, his method of controlling markets for his billionaire friends, his mechanism for running gangster state. Without tariffs, Trump has no leverage, no power, no way to operate. Share this video with everyone you know, because Supreme Court is about to take them away. Case was argued back in November. Chief Justice John Roberts called tariffs taxes on Americans. That's devastating for Trump's position, because Trump's been claiming tariffs are paid by foreign countries. But Roberts just said no, they're taxes on Americans. And if they're taxes on Americans, Congress has to approve them. That's in Constitution. Article 1, Congress controls taxation. President can't just impose taxes unilaterally. And Trump's tariffs, they're taxes, so they're unconstitutional. And Supreme Court is about to rule exactly that. Could come down this week, maybe Wednesday, and when it does, Trump's entire presidency collapses. Think about what that means. But it's not just tariffs. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is standing up to Trump in ways we've never seen before. Trump has been attacking Powell nonstop, blaming him for bad economy, demanding he cut interest rates, threatening to fire him, even sent DOJ to investigate him, sent subpoenas demanding Fed documents, trying to intimidate Powell into compliance. And Powell just said no, publicly. Issued statements saying DOJ investigation is sham, said it's retaliation for not cutting rates, said Fed's independence is crucial for American economy. That's unprecedented. Fed chairs don't publicly call out presidents like that. They stay quiet. They ignore attacks. They maintain institutional dignity. But Powell broke that pattern, said Trump is corrupting presidency, said investigation is political witch hunt, said he won't back down. And Republican senators are backing Powell. Tom Tillis, Republican from North Carolina, sits on banking committee, has oversight over Fed. He just announced he's blocking all Trump nominees to Federal Reserve, won't confirm anyone until DOJ backs off Powell investigation. That's huge. That's Republican senator using his power to directly oppose Trump, to protect institution from Trump's corruption. Tillis said Trump administration wants to end Fed independence, said DOJ is entity that faces questions over credibility, said he'll fight Trump on reshaping Fed. That's not quiet disagreement, that's open revolt. Make sure you're subscribed to John Brown Show because and other Republican senators joining him. Susan Collins criticized Trump's attacks on Powell. Scott Bessent, Trump's own Treasury Secretary, pushed back on tariff strategy. This is Trump's party fracturing, his own people abandoning him, his own appointees defying him, because even Republicans see where this is heading. Economic disaster, market collapse, inflation out of control, and they don't want to be associated with it when it all falls apart. Let me walk you through why tariffs matter so much to Trump and why losing them destroys his presidency. Tariffs are Trump's favorite tool. He loves them, obsessed with them, tweets about them constantly, calls them beautiful, says they're making America great, but they're not about economics. They're about power, about corruption, about control. Trump uses tariffs to punish countries he doesn't like, to reward countries that flatter him, to manipulate stock markets, to enrich his friends, to extract bribes from foreign governments and corporations. Here's how it works. Trump threatens tariffs on country or industry. Markets panic. Stocks drop. Company executives scramble. They call Trump. They offer deals. They promise investments. They book rooms at Trump properties. They hire Trump's friends as consultants. They make donations to Trump-aligned groups. And then Trump backs off tariffs, announces great deal, takes credit for investments that were already planned. Markets recover. Trump's friends who knew tariffs were coming make millions on stock trades. It's corruption cycle, it's gangster economics. And it only works if Trump can threaten tariffs unilaterally without congressional approval. If Supreme Court says Congress has to approve tariffs, whole scheme collapses. Because Congress won't approve Trump's corrupt tariff threats. Democrats won't. Most Republicans won't. There's no legitimate economic justification for most of Trump's tariffs. They're purely political, purely transactional, purely corrupt. So without unilateral tariff power, Trump loses his main tool for corruption, loses his leverage over corporations, loses his ability to manipulate markets, loses everything that makes his presidency valuable to him and his billionaire backers. And Trump knows it. That's why he's panicking. That's why he posted "We're screwed." That's why he's warning about trillions in refunds, because he knows Supreme Court is about to destroy his entire operation, and he can't stop it, can't threaten them, can't bribe them, can't manipulate them. They're going to rule based on Constitution, and Constitution is clear. Congress controls taxation, President doesn't, Trump loses. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Economy is already falling apart because of Trump's tariffs. Job growth in 2025 was lowest in 20 years for any non-recession year. Lowest in 2 decades. Families are struggling, prices are up, inflation is up, healthcare being cut, millions losing insurance, all because of Trump's economic policies, all because of tariffs that raise prices on everything. And Jerome Powell sees this. That's why he won't cut interest rates. Because cutting rates while inflation is high would make inflation worse, would hurt Americans even more. Powell is doing his job, protecting economy from Trump's incompetence. But Trump doesn't understand economics, genuinely doesn't get it. Thinks tariffs are paid by foreign countries when they're actually paid by American consumers. Thinks cutting interest rates while inflation is high is good policy when it's actually terrible. Thinks attacking Fed chair will help economy when it actually spooks markets and makes things worse. He's completely clueless, and everyone knows it now. Even his supporters are starting to figure it out. Prices keep going up. Jobs aren't coming back. Economy feels terrible. And Trump has no answers except blame Powell, blame Democrats, blame anyone except himself. Think about what that means. But Powell isn't backing down. Neither are Republican senators. Neither is Supreme Court. Every institution is pushing back against Trump's corruption, and Trump can't fight them all simultaneously. Can't win against Fed and Congress and Supreme Court all at once. He's losing on every front. Tariffs about to be struck down. Fed independence being defended. Republican senators blocking his nominees. Economic numbers getting worse. Public approval cratering. Everything collapsing. And Trump's response is to admit defeat. To post "We're screwed." To warn about impossible situations. To basically say if Supreme Court rules against me, presidency is over. That's what that Truth Social post means. That's what "We're screwed" means. It means Trump knows He can't govern without tariffs, can't operate without corruption tools, can't survive without ability to threaten and bribe and manipulate. And all of that is being taken away. Now let me explain why Supreme Court ruling matters so much beyond just tariffs. It's about precedent, about limits on presidential power, about whether president can act unilaterally on major policy without congressional approval. Trump has been governing like dictator, issuing executive orders left and right, making policy through presidential decree, ignoring Congress entirely. And courts have been letting him get away with a lot of it. But tariffs are different because they're explicitly taxes, and Constitution explicitly says Congress controls taxes. There's no ambiguity, no gray area. President cannot impose taxes, period. So when Supreme Court rules that Trump's tariffs are unconstitutional, they're not just striking down specific policy. They're setting precedent that limits presidential power, that reinforces congressional authority, that restores constitutional balance, and that precedent applies to everything Trump does, to all his executive orders, all his unilateral actions, all his attempts to govern without Congress. If he can't impose tariffs alone, he can't do a lot of other things alone either. And Trump knows this, knows Supreme Court ruling opens floodgates to challenges of everything he's done. That's why he's panicking. Not just about tariffs, about entire presidency becoming legally vulnerable. Share this video because Republican senators see opportunity. They've been frustrated with Trump's authoritarianism, with his attempts to control everything, with his disregard for Congress, but they've been afraid to oppose him directly, afraid of his base, afraid of primary challenges, afraid of mean tweets. But now Supreme Court might give them cover, might rule that Trump overstepped, might say Congress has to be involved, and Republican senators can use that ruling to reassert their authority, to push back on Trump without looking disloyal, to say we're not opposing president, we're following Supreme Court ruling. Tom Tillis is already doing this, using his banking committee role to block Fed nominees, using constitutional argument about separation of powers, and other Republicans will follow. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitt Romney, moderate Republicans who've been looking for excuse to oppose Trump, they'll use Supreme Court ruling as permission, as justification, as cover, and Trump won't be able to stop them. Because what's he going to do? Attack Supreme Court for following Constitution? Attack Republican senators for respecting court ruling? He can try, but it won't work, because even MAGA base understands Constitution matters. Even Trump supporters don't want president who ignores Supreme Court. So Trump is trapped. Supreme Court rules against tariffs. He loses main corruption tool. Republican senators block his nominees. He loses ability to reshape institutions. Economy keeps declining. He loses public support, and he can't fight back effectively, can't threaten judges, can't primary every Republican senator, can't make economy better by yelling about it. He's powerless, and he knows it. That's why he posted, "We're screwed," because he is screwed. Presidency is over. Not literally removed from office yet, but functionally finished. No ability to govern, no political capital, no institutional support, just lame duck president watching everything collapse around him. Now here's where it gets really complicated. Trump's admission of defeat has massive implications for 2026 midterms. Democrats were already favored to make gains. Trump's unpopularity was hurting Republican candidates. But now Trump himself is saying presidency is failing, saying we're screwed if court rules against us. That's gift to Democratic campaigns. They don't have to convince voters Trump is failing. Trump is saying it himself, admitting his economic strategy doesn't work, admitting he has no backup plan, admitting everything depends on unconstitutional tariff power. Democratic ads write themselves. Show Trump's Truth Social post. Show him saying we're screwed. Ask voters if they want president who admits defeat, who admits his policies are failures, who admits he can't govern without violating Constitution. Those ads will be devastating. Will play in every competitive House and Senate race. Will drive turnout among Democrats and depress turnout among Republicans. Because who wants to vote for party led by guy who says we're screwed? Who admits his presidency is over? Who has no answers except unconstitutional power grabs? And Republican candidates are panicking. They're seeing polls, seeing Trump's approval at historic lows, seeing economic numbers getting worse, seeing their own voters turning against them. And now Trump gives them this. This admission of failure. This "we're screwed" post that Democrats will use to destroy them. Republican candidates in swing districts are furious. They're distancing themselves from Trump, refusing to defend tariffs, refusing to attack Powell, refusing to go down with Trump's sinking ship. And that fractures Republican coalition even more, makes it even harder for Trump to govern, makes midterm losses even bigger. Bottom line is this: Trump admitted his presidency is over, posted "we're screwed if Supreme Court rules against tariffs," and Supreme Court is about to rule against tariffs, probably this week. So Trump is screwed. His own words, his own admission, his own defeat. Federal Reserve Chair Powell defying him publicly. Republican senators blocking his nominees. Supreme Court about to strike down his main policy tool. Economy in terrible shape. Job growth lowest in 20 years. Prices up. Families suffering. And Trump has no answers. No plan B. No way to recover. Just admission of defeat. We're screwed. That's where we are. That's what Trump posted. That's what's happening. Presidency collapsing, party fracturing, institutions pushing back, constitutional limits being enforced, and Trump powerless to stop any of it. Can't threaten Supreme Court into ruling his way. Can't force Powell to cut rates. Can't make Republican senators fall in line. Can't make economy better through corruption and tariffs. Everything he built his presidency on is being taken away. And he knows it, admitted it, posted it for world to see. We're screwed. Most honest thing Trump ever said. Because he is screwed. Completely. Totally. Irreversibly. Supreme Court ruling coming. Tariffs getting struck down. Economic disaster continuing. Political support evaporating. 2026 midterms looking catastrophic for Republicans. And Trump sitting in White House watching it all fall apart. Unable to stop it. Unable to fix it. Just admitting defeat on social media. We're screwed. That's his legacy. That's his second term. That's how it ends. Not with accomplishments or victories or success, with admission of failure, with confession that without unconstitutional power he can't govern, with recognition that presidency is over, and we're watching it happen in real time. Watching most powerful person in world admit he's powerless. Watching president admit his policies failed. Watching leader admit he's lost. It's unprecedented. It's stunning. It's exactly what Trump deserves after everything he's done. All the corruption, all the lies, all the constitutional violations, all the attacks on institutions, coming back to destroy him, Fed standing firm, Congress pushing back, Supreme Court enforcing Constitution, and Trump collapsing under weight of his own failures. This story continues. Stay tuned. Because Supreme Court ruling could come any day, could be Wednesday, could be later this week, but it's coming. And when it does, Trump's presidency effectively ends. Tariffs struck down, main corruption tool eliminated, political power gone, just figurehead president serving out remaining time until midterms deliver final blow. This is collapse happening. This is accountability working. This is system pushing back against authoritarianism. And Trump knows he lost. Posted "we're screwed," admitted defeat, confessed failure, for once in his life told truth about himself. We're screwed. Yes, you are, Donald. Yes, you are. Stay tuned.